Hello and welcome to this live stream. My name's Rob and I'm going to do a watercolour for you this evening. I might do another one as well if we've got time, a shorter one at the end. But thanks for joining me, and this video will also be available on YouTube to watch as well afterwards, so if you do miss it, don't worry. And I'll also have the highlighted version on my Patreon page. And so the painting we're going to do, I shall just put it up on the screen. So this is Watercolours in Wales, the UK. So hello to anyone who's watching this in the UK and Wales. Watercolours is a seaside town where I actually used to live, so I know this scene quite well. So we'll give it a go. It's quite a complicated scene, but I shall simplify it as I always do. So let's get started. So hopefully you can hear me okay, that I've got the microphones on. Last week I had my microphone off a little bit, so let me know in the comments if the volume goes, and hopefully I'll remember to keep the microphone on. Right, so this is a 9 by 12 inch Saunders and Waterford £140 knot, so it's got a bit of texture on there. So we'll start with the drawing that I shall look to see where the horizon is, so we'll have it slightly above halfway. So I shall press fairly hard so you can hopefully see what's going on. We'll have that hill there coming down over here. There's another one here going off, and we've got these two white triangles that work quite well to draw the eye, and there's a lot of information on this scene that we'll have to get rid of because it's just too complicated to paint, certainly as a live stream. So I shall just break it down to its simple shapes, and so a lot of this will actually be painted very loosely. And we've got a distant building there which I possibly won't even include, but we'll put it there just in case. That, this probably won't be seen by too many people in Watercolours. Greg, who I know follows me, he lives near Watercolours, so he'll be the judge of whether it's a good rendition. So we've got the harbour wall going along here. We've got this complicated wall, but it's a great lead-in to the painting. So with loose watercolours, you've got a bit of leeway to not get things absolutely perfect. So, but I'll try my best to get the perspective reasonably well on this. So, and then we've got these rocks and things here, which will just be suggested. And there's another wall here. So it's a very pretty town, Watercolours, if you're ever in Wales. And there's boats and things here, and a couple of boats on the harbour wall here. So nice verticals there, and then there's other boats that are out of view. And pull that across there. I've got opportunity to put another vertical this side, which will act as a stopper. Something there, and that comes down here. So we've got a nice lead in here. We'll worry about the shadows and things when I come to do the painting. There's some steps here, quite nice to include those, but just suggest them. And then we've got some railings here that go down to the beach. So I think that's probably almost there for the drawing. Let's have another lantern there. And we've got more verticals going on here. More boats there. And we'll put the figure in afterwards. So let's move that picture out the way. Just make that a little bit smaller. So that's a slightly bigger picture there, so you can see what's what. And I'll put this on my Patreon page as well. So if you decide to have a go at this yourself, it's on there. Right, so the brushes I'm going to use will be probably the Skoda Ultima size 14 and the Skoda Perla size 14. So I've got a nice big brush to do the wash, and then a brush that holds a lot of water but comes to a nice fine point. Let's just get rid of some of that. So we'll get the first wash in. So we'll go for a nice bit of warmth, but I think it looks like it's a fairly warmish day, although somewhat a figure in there has got a coat on, so perhaps it's cool but sunny. But as it's cold out at the moment, we'll go for some warmth. So we'll get some white paper left over for these boats and things, and I'll cut around those white shapes there. That will give me a nice bit of contrast. I can pull the brush across nice and quickly. That will give me a bit of sparkle. Reload that brush. So we can just put some shapes of rocks and things in here. We've got the path leading us in there. So when you do your drawing, you kind of get familiar with the scene. That I understand, obviously, if you're fairly new to art, that you may be tracing or using other means to get your artwork down onto the paper, which is nothing wrong with that at all. But as you get more confident and you can draw things freehand or attempt to have a go at some of it, you kind of work out the painting as you're going along doing the drawing and figure out, I'll connect this shape to this shape, etc. So before this dries, I shall try and get these distant hills in while it's damp. So I'll switch to the other brush. So blue colours tend to recede, so we'll mix a bit of blue into that, but slightly thicker mix, but not too thick. So, and it's best to treat objects like this as flat shapes, that there is a bit of detail on there, but if you start putting detail in on things like this, they'll tend to come forward, whereas we want it to disappear away into the distance. So I'll go a little bit darker for this other one. And it started to dry at the top here, so I'll get a hard edge, and then as it comes down here it'll soften. So reload that brush. I shall cut around that lantern, so I don't have to resort to using gouache or anything like that. And we'll just maybe just leave a little bit of a suggestion that there's a house there in the distance, but let's not complicate the scene. So I've got some odd things happening on here, but I'll leave it. That it will all add to the effect. Maybe a texture in the distance there. So I'll need to dry this now with the hairdryer. So I shall just mute the microphone for a second. And when you use your hairdryer, if you do to dry it, just pass it evenly over the paper. If you do it in one spot, you'll dry that area and then you'll get balloons and cauliflowers and things. So that's important. So now we can start to put some detail in. We'll start with these boats in the distance, but that's the key. They are in the distance, so we don't need any detail. So I've kind of mixed a bit of a grey there. So maybe we'll just suggest a hint of a window or two there. Nothing too much, just a little bit. Get that lantern in there for now. So we've got a roof there that kind of comes off the paper. So I'm just going to connect all of this up, and I may put some colour on these boats, but I can do that afterwards. But let's just get some darks in and start connecting shapes up, and something like this. I'm not quite sure what's here, so let's just connect it up to there. And there's a dark in here. So at this sort of stage, at this sort of detail, I'm not overly worried about looking at my reference picture too much, but rather than trying to make an exact copy of Aberystwyth Harbour, I'm just trying to look what's going to make a good painting. So we can just put a little something here in the distance, leave it to the imagination. And maybe take a bit of just clean water and just soften there, that's in the distance. And let's put some blue in. So I'm staying with greys and blues at the moment because this is, a long way away. So let's just paint into there. So there's lots of boats here. So I can just suggest, leave some work for the viewer to do. So this part of the wall is catching light, so I'll be careful not to get paint on there. But maybe we'll connect it into here. So I'm just not painting any detail, I'm just suggesting that there's something here, but without painting boats and complicated shapes. So we've got two boats here that I do need to take care of their shapes here, because as long as I've got a couple of boats in the scene that look like boats, the eye will fill in the rest for the other boats. But again, I don't need to get down with too much detail, and I may add a bit of colour with those. So I'm negative painting the shape behind the boat to make it stand out. So we can go a little bit darker on the roof here. So remember, this is dry paper, so I'll get hard edges. So we'll add a little bit of red into there. Let's try and get some nicer colours. So nice and strong with the paint. So this is kind of, will draw the eye because we've got light against dark here. try and do things in one foul swoop. We leave a little bit of a sparkle there. Let's load that up there. So now I'm just going to take some of that blue, which will cool the side of the building down here, but I'll let it run down and touch on there, but leave a little bit of highlight on top of the boat. And maybe make it a little bit darker here. Put some darks under there. So I'm just little marks in here. Got a little bit of a cauliflower there, but don't worry about it, just keep going. And by cauliflower I mean a balloon. There's all sorts of things people call them. It's where the paint I've just put on is on slightly dried paint, so it just lifts the paint off of the surface and gives some odd effects, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes they can add to a painting. So this is now starting to dry, so I need to be careful not to overwork that. So let's just take that off of there. Maybe we'll add a couple of verticals in here. Suggest those boats. And that's all it needs, is just a little suggestion. And we'll let that dry and maybe we'll put some detail in those. So let's mix up a bit of a shadow colour. So a bit of blue and that crimson. Touch of that yellow maybe. We'll go with that. So we've got a wall that comes along here. And let's link it up to here with, just add a little bit of connection there. I think it needs a little bit more blue in there. So just adding some blue into that. So let's throw a shadow across. We've got the sunlight coming in this direction, we'll say. I'm not sure where it was, but that lantern there is throwing a light across. And this wall comes across here maybe. So this is a good way to lead us into the painting. And also we don't know what's here, so we can get away with all this. And if it looks good, that's fine. And maybe a few more, not too many. So take some blue to cool this side of the wall down. Brown into that blue just to just darken it, just keep it warm. And we'll just suggest these steps. And a little bit of detail there. Let's just put a bit of water on there. So I shall switch back to the slightly larger brush to put in these rocks. So I just need some fairly thick paint. So try and get them into this wall while it's still wet. So we can leave a few highlights, which will be just the wash that's dried underneath, which could be the light hitting the rocks. Let's try to leave a bit of that wall, the railing there maybe. try it. The less details it gets over here. It's warming up a little bit down here. So I think at this stage it's probably a good idea to let this dry. So I shall just use the hairdryer again. So I was struggling to dry that with the hairdryer because I was trying to type at the same time and it was just beyond me. I couldn't do it. But I was typing, hello Pamela, but, happy Thanksgiving to everyone in America. But, thanks for popping in. I hope the pies and the sweet potatoes are going well. So we've got it dry now, so we can start to put the little bits of detail in. So we can use some thicker paint now. We've got a railing that comes down here. Suggest that. But we don't need to go mad with detail. We can maybe have a slightly darker one here, but that's a bit closer. And same over here, just break them up a little bit. Let's just use a bit of clean water just to soften that a little bit. That's fine, just a suggestion is all we need. So the path is here, so let's put a figure in. This is why it's good to practice your figures on scrap bits of paper, because you can get this far and then mess it up with a figure that's not quite so good, but we'll try our best. So we'll put the figure here, so we've got the head. Keep them, got to be the right size, so I think they need to be slightly bigger than that. Add a bit of a suggestion that they're moving. Let's add a dog, walking their dog. There's always people walking their dogs along here. I shall let that dry and we'll perhaps add a little highlight or two on there. So let's get a bit of colour into the scene. I've got some of this cadmium red. It's quite dried on the palette, but it's a good quality one, so it does wet up well. So let's put the red there for the life thingy. Let's have a bit of red on that boat. We could actually maybe have this person walking towards us maybe. And let's put some blue in, some boats here in the distance, so I've got the opportunity to just add a bit of colour here and there. But, maybe let's put the sail on that one. Obviously I think it must be winter, they're all the boats have been put away for the winter. But you get quite a lot of wind in Wales, so I think I had to be fairly careful that the boats didn't get blown away. So be careful not to go too mad with colour and start putting it everywhere for the sake of it. But it is a very colourful town, Aveyron, so it's true to the town. So these are too light, so I think we need to maybe throw a shadow across, keep some light. Maybe we'll try that. So this is the coast, so we're going to need plenty of seagulls. And I'm just touching the paper. And I think in a harbour town you can't have too many. So at this sort of stage, it's a case of having a look to see what else does it need, if anything. But I could use a little bit of gouache maybe to bring some light into that lantern. Just dropped water on there. So I use a bit of gouache straight from the tube, just to put a bit of light back into there. Maybe suggest a little bit on that one. Again, be careful that just a little bit here and there just adds a little bit of sparkle, but too much is too much. So I think a bit of light on that railing is good. And then we'll add a little bit on the figure there. The light is perhaps catching the side of that figure. And you can always add a little bit of yellow ochre or something if it's a bit too white, just to add a bit of warmth into it. So let's take the tape off. We'll get rid of the reference picture so we're not comparing it. If you pull the tape away from the paper like that rather than towards the centre, if it does tear, you're not going to tear your painting, so pull it away. That's the best way. But this is quite low tack, so it's not a problem. So I think I'll add a bit of colour to this figure, and maybe even add another figure in. I think it's a busy town. So, but sometimes by taking the tape off, you can kind of see it better what you need. So let's add a bit of colour. This person is in shadow, so I've got to be careful I don't put too much colour on. Just a little suggestion there. And let's go for having some figures standing on the harbour wall here. So the head height will be the same. So we've got one there, so they're going to be smaller because they're further away. So maybe that's a child, and they have buckets where they try and catch the crabs, and a parent with him supervising. And then we can cast the shadow there. So I think we'll call that one finished. That should bring back the reference picture. Move that over there slightly. So you can see it's a very complicated scene, but you know, we painted that quite quickly in sort of half an hour because I haven't got bogged down with the detail. That I kept the drawing very loose, and by keeping the drawing loose, the painting was going to be loose because I didn't worry about things like the building in the distant here, that you can only just kind of make it out in the photo reference because it's, you know, a little bit aerial perspective, it's a little bit misty. So it just needed a suggestion of a couple of windows, the roof there, that tells the story. There's loads of detail in the photo with boats stacked up here and all sorts of things, benches and probably people and so on, but we've got a suggestion of the detail there that someone who knows Abereron would know probably this scene. And compositionally, obviously I took this photo in a view that it could be a painting, that we've got a nice lead in here with this wall that takes us into the painting, and then we've even got some arrows here that take us up, and then maybe this hill brings us back down to where perhaps the centre of focus is here. Quite a complicated area here with all the rocks, but the better way to deal with things like that, paint it simply, just suggest a few of the little highlights. I think a painting needs somewhere for the eye to rest, so that could be this area that there's not a lot going on. And you know, if I started painting individual rocks and so on, it would just become a painting of rocks, whereas we've tried to capture the whole scene, which is a very busy harbour town with people walking their dogs, there's boats, so yeah, quite pleased with that, how that's worked. So if you're up for another watercolour, I'll do this landscape, but I shall paint it like I've been doing some of my beginner watercolour videos, or try to simplify it. Certainly this painting I've just done, you know, I would never probably have attempted that as a beginner, that or I probably would have had a go, but I wouldn't have had a great success because it's just too complicated. So it is a good idea to tackle scenes that are, you know, a little bit easier, maybe less detail in them, and then build up to something like this. But certainly have a go at more complicated scenes by all means. It's a good learning tool. Everything you paint, that even if it's not a success, it's definitely worth doing. You get a lot from it. So let's swap over these pictures. Is before we start that one, I'll just show you some of these paintings that I've been doing on the beginner workshop. So I mean, I've sort of tried to do subjects that are a little bit more simple, but still, you know, have all the nice qualities of a watercolour. Let's put it on this screen here, it's probably better. And so this one here gives you the opportunity to try some dry brush, simple sort of shape here. So it's I think with the beginner workshop or the beginner videos, I try not to have too much in the way of drawing, because you know, I want you to be able to sort of paint it again and again and try it again without investing too much drawing. How to paint trees simply. That this was quite a good demo, because these are sort of the detail of trees I put in my paintings. I don't do any more. I don't paint individual branches and things. And seascape here again, opportunities to try some soft, loose watercolours. Paint these clouds wet into wet and just let them do their thing. Dry brush, it's a great tool to create light in a painting. On this demo we had a real complicated, like the rocks, lots of detail, but we could just treat it as one shape. That was much better. And again, quite a complicated scene, but we broke it down to simple shapes, and again dry brush here to create that light and creating distance with a very translucent blue wash, and contrast, using contrast, light against dark to create a little bit of pop and a warm palette. So that's a few of the demos that are available on my Patreon page. So take a look at that. So we'll have a go at this scene here. So Rusty, amazing how you simplified like the pops of colour. Fresh and loose, very fast, swift. I'm still trying to sketch it in, lol. Yeah, it was quite a quick demo, that one. We'll certainly slow this one down a little bit. But as I say, it will be available on my Patreon, the painting I've just done, as a highlighted demo, so you better revisit that. So slightly smaller paper, and this is actually £90. The other paper was £140, and that's to do with the weight, so it's a little bit thinner. But with smaller paintings, I do find it's okay to use thinner paper, but anything bigger than 7 by 11, I do like to use the slightly thicker paper. But generally speaking, I'll always use the slightly thicker paper if I can. But I've got some of this paper, so I'll use it. So let's change the image. Okay, so we'll sketch this in, and we'll keep it nice and simple, the sketch. So we've got the water's edge comes in about here, and it's a very shallow part that we can actually see that it's a long way away, so we can only sort of see this much of the water. We've got a path that snakes around here. And what I do on my watercolour workshops, I send you a picture of the drawing, so you can actually prepare that if you like beforehand. But certainly I will obviously slow things up on the workshop, because obviously not on a time limit or needing to please YouTube's algorithm. But, so we've got some fence posts here that lead us in, and across the water we've got these trunks that will create light and dark, and then we've got a suggestion of a tree here, distant trees there, and all of this doesn't need to be accurate, it's just a suggestion there. And we've got a field that comes down here, again more trees there, and so as long as we've got some of this water to show through, that's all we need. So same colours which I've got here, which are yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, Zion crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, neutral tint, cadmium red, and a little bit of white gouache. Hi Chris, glad you could make it, but don't worry if you've missed some, because it will be on Patreon, highlighted version, but all the content will be there. So we'll move that photo out of the way. Right, so I'll use the slightly bigger brush, the Escode Ultima. So we'll go for a bit of cerulean blue. We'll put that in at the top. And then straight in with maybe a touch of red and the yellow, just to create a bit of warmth. So fairly thick paint there. Let's just pull that across and just paint it up into the sky. And with that same orange, let's just go along the post there, add that warmth along there. So we just need to make sure that we don't paint anything in the water there, that we want to keep that white of the paper. So we'll mix up a little bit of a green, so the yellow ochre maybe in cobalt blue. So it doesn't really matter what blue you use really, just to make a green. And I shall just put that down as a wash, just paint it up to the orange I put in there, and leave a few little white highlights there. Same over here. We can see a little bit of the grass verge there. Use the side of the brush maybe just to pull it up into there. And then maybe a bit of cobalt blue, tiny bit of crimson to make a colour for the path. So just a grey. But it's quite a dark scene, but all the light is going to be here. So I'm just going to clean the brush off, just take off some of the water, and then I'll just mop up some of these areas. And say that the thinner paper, this is say the £90 opposed to the £140, it's not as nice to paint on, that the water doesn't absorb as well. So I've got some odd things going on here which probably wouldn't have happened if I was using the thicker paper. So it's a good lesson to use the best quality paper you can, but we'll get away with it. But certainly if you're a beginner painter or still learning, go for the best paper you can, and certainly £140 is a good weight. So we'll just dry this off. So let's just mute that. So this is now completely dried, and so I've got some marks and things on here that I can cover with some dry brush afterwards, so I never worry about things like that. So we can now mix a bit of that yellow ochre, maybe with a tiny bit of crimson. And remember, this is the water here, so I don't want to paint into there, but maybe I'll just suggest a bit of warmth in that field. And then a bit of blue for these distant trees. Maybe sort of a purple colour, purpley blue, but fairly dark. So I'm going to use the side of the brush and just, and anything that runs into there, that's fine, I'll leave it as it is. So these are the distant trees, so I've gone quite dark with that. And that comes across to here. So I'm just going to take off some of the paint off of there and then just make those more tree-like, and just vary it so some trees are taller than the others. And we'll add a little bit of the yellow into it just to give it a bit more colour. And now up to the edge of the water, and again brush on its side, just paint that up, but I need to make sure I leave some of this field to show through, a bit more water. And some of these trees could be taller, so we can bring them up here. So that's fine. So we've created a bit of light here, and pull that across there. So let's add a bit more yellow into there. So maybe we've got the light coming in from this direction. So we're going for, I think, an evening feel to this scene. And then in with some blue. A bit of brown. Just to darken this side, so this is in shadow. But I'll try to leave some of these white, not white, the underpainting to shine through. Again, if you've got too much water on, just dab your brush on there. So now I can go quite dark with these trunks. So pull them down across. So this is what's going to create the light. We can help direct the eye through the path there. And now we can work over this side. So we've got another row of trees that go along here that's nice and dark. Maybe we'll just add a bit of clean water and just soften that edge. A bit of dry brush. So a bit of that yellow, and then just again pull that up, give the illusion of trees and things across here. Vary the strength of colour, it's slightly darker, and let's pull that up across here. So we should hopefully have a sense that there's a lake here in the distance. So let's take a bit of that yellow. So there's hardly any water on there, so it's mainly paint. Just a bit of dry brush to create a bit of texture. So let's put in some of these posts, which I'll just use a bit of burnt sienna, just darken it with a bit of blue. Then we've got a post there, try not to make them too perfect. And obviously they're going to get smaller and closer together as they get further away. You don't have to do all of them. I wouldn't worry about things like barbed wire fences or the actual fence, the line. But, if you did, just break it up, just suggest a little bit maybe. So they could be quite useful for directional lines. So maybe a bit more warmth in this foreground. So again, not too much water. But we can just use the side of the brush to connect into those fence posts. And the same on this side. Put a little bit more warmth on that tree there on the side. Put a little bit through the painting here. The sun is catching. So as we've got the sunlight coming in from this direction, I think we probably need to put a bit of a shadow down here. So let's use a bit of cobalt blue and the yellow ochre. Just darken this side a little bit. Again, just put it up into the side there. And we could maybe throw a shadow across here. So we could actually put some shadows across here as well. So let's go for a bit of cobalt blue, a bit of the alizarin crimson. So while this is still wet, let's have an imaginary tree coming across here. And then we can just have some smaller ones going across here. So we've kind of got the white of the paper taking us off the paper. So what I would do is just put a little bit of that shadow colour in the water there. But just a little bit. But keep all the light here where you want it. Maybe a little bit in there as well. Just to concentrate the light. So we could add a figure in there as well. Original music on Yamaha keyboards. Hi, how you doing? Don't worry if you're a little bit late, but the demo will be available on YouTube still as a live stream, and I'll have it on my Patreon as an edited version. But, thanks for all your comments, I appreciate them. So let's just add a figure in. So let's go for a bit of warmth. So let's have someone roughly about here. So I'm using orange first because I can then put the shadow on the other side, just create a bit of warmth. Maybe we've got two people walking down to the lake. And the dog, obviously. So let's use some of this burnt umber to darken this side. So it is just literally a suggestion of figures. Let's just put a bit of water on them just to soften them a little bit. Let's throw a shadow across. So hopefully you've enjoyed these couple of demos that I appreciate. Obviously the first one was quite fast, but check out some of the beginner ones on my Patreon page that they are slower than this as well, and I go into more detail of the palette. And I know a few of you watching this are patrons that appreciate your support. It really does help. But I'm developing my Patreon page, and there's all sorts of ideas we've got, Kate and I, for that. Yeah, a couple of birds in the sky. Let's have a go with a dry brush. I've just cleaned it off. Just take off some of the water there. Let's just see if I can just lift some paint off there. But if not, we can resort to a little bit of gouache. So let's dry that with a hairdryer. We could try a bit of colour on these figures, so just paint straight from the tube pretty much. We'll add a little bit of white into that. Yeah, that looked a bit too similar. And let's go colourful. Again, I'll take a little bit of gouache straight from the tube, and we'll mix a little bit of yellow ochre in with the gouache just to give it some warmth. And then we can just add a little highlight. Obviously remember to put it on the correct side. Maybe a little highlight or two on these posts, or a couple of the posts. And that wire maybe. Just a little bit of something on that tree, catching the light, but careful not to do too much. And so most of this, when it dries, disappears to nothing. So let's take the tape off, which helps us to see it as a finished product. And something else you can do is get hold of a mount that fits the size paper you use, and let's pop a mount around there. Let's get rid of the image. There we go. That it helps you to see it as a finished piece. That we've used quite dark and almost sort of muddy colours, but we have a feel of evening light on here because we've got, as long as you have an area of light in the painting, I think you're okay. So we've got a lot of light here because we've got the dark against the light. So that's just white paper there that we've reserved. We've got the warm glow of the orange. So I suppose you'd describe this probably as an orange painting, is a kind of the main colour. And also we've got some red with a complementary green, and that's a sort of a move John Singer Sargent used quite a lot, and a lot of artists did. They'd have a very muted, say, green, and then just one little bit of bright red somewhere, and it really makes that red look even brighter. And trees just painted simply, just the side of the brush is all you need just to suggest that light. And obviously the post lead us in, so it's kind of an A composition. So I think that worked okay. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and good luck if you decide to have a go yourself, and hopefully you manage to get something out of it. Let me know in the comments or send me a message what you thought. And again, I appreciate you being a patron when you're on my Patreon page, and thanks for watching the videos, liking and commenting. That the channel is growing well, so that's all going well. So until next time, that I'll have the Saturday challenge posted on Saturday, obviously, and then I aim to do on Monday a video that's going to be an hour long, that probably have several videos on there. So I'm going to give that a try on YouTube, see how it goes, and I'll be posting regularly on my Patreon page as well. So I'm concentrating on the beginner course on there at the moment, and I've got some oil painting demos as well. So it's all busy, and Kate's working on the website, so that should be live hopefully in the next day or two, so that'll have more information about how to book for workshops, etc. So again, happy Thanksgiving to those in America. That I understand obviously you couldn't probably make it today because you're all probably having family around and so on, so I'll let you off this time, but we'll hopefully be back next Thursday for another live stream. But like I say, I'll edit this video so you can watch it at a later date and go through it at your own pace. So bye for now. Just have a quick look at your messages. Thanks Rusty, very invigorating, so much amazing work, appreciate that, thank you very much. And I'm glad you enjoyed it and enjoyed the escape away. So yeah, definitely painting is a way to escape, but certainly with watercolour it can be quite challenging, but you just got to keep going. You know, I look back to some of my very early work, I haven't got many pictures of them, but you know, I struggled like everybody else, but I've been at it for over 20 years now, so I should be hopefully getting somewhere with it, but I still they don't always work in watercolour, but just keep going, keep practicing. So good luck, and I shall look forward to seeing you on the next video. So bye for now.